Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Hivemind. We're back this week after the lunatics took control of the asylum last week. We had Duncan on a caffeine binge, going going crazy with his ton bull posting. But yeah, it was a high energy podcast for sure. We're back this week talking about ETH ETF, markets generally, prediction markets, and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, same cast as always. It's Duncan, Flood Capital, Ceteris, head of research, and Jan, managing partner at Delphi Ventures, and myself. So who wants to kick us off on the ETH ETF? I mean, I feel like we've kind of everyone's discussed this to death, but there's not that much that happened in the last week since our last pod. So I feel like maybe starting off there. Obviously, for some context, I guess, Kang, who in general is not someone you want to fade, came out pretty bearish on the ETH ETF and kind of crypto generally, after being pretty bullish a few months before with his meme kind of super cycle thesis. There's a few other, I think, good traders that came out bearish, but there's also some smart minds on the other side. So maybe to start with, can go around the horn and see how everyone's feeling about ETH right here and markets generally leading up to the ETF.
Yeah, so I mean, ETH launch got delayed to what is currently set to be end of July launch. There's definitely mixed feelings about what the flows will look like. I think initially they will be pretty strong, just as people are converting their spot holdings into ETF holdings, similar to what happened on Bitcoin. So you can expect some decent flows early on, but those aren't necessarily purchases, but rather just kind of conversions. And so it's not necessarily positive flow from a buying perspective, but just from ETF AUM perspective. One of the initial kind of bearish concerns around the timing of the ETF launch was that it was too soon relative to the BTC one, and so that didn't allow for enough time for BTC to grow and then the marketing engines to turn on for ETH, and it was also just you wanted that catalyst pushed out further as something to look forward to rather than one that materializes a lot sooner. So in that context, I think having it pushed back a bit, even though it's only a few weeks, roughly a month, is I think bullish overall because it does push the catalyst back. You do have a bit of a lull now between now and then where there isn't much happening, and so I think that's part of what's pricing. That's what part of what's being priced in, and then I think just there's been a gradual decline in kind of global liquidity, and that's probably one of the other big drivers of BTC decline. I think if you look throughout the year, we're all bullish on the space in the long run, and so it if you think about what will be the future kind of catalyst, you have if you assume a high probability that Trump wins, that'll certainly be bullish. I think he's speaking at that Bitcoin conference along with Vivek and a few other senators end of July. So I think that's probably a pretty decent catalyst where what could be brought up is that they want to hold that Bitcoin on balance sheet, right, rather than continue selling it. And so I think that's not at all priced in and could be something that gets mentioned. So if you think about the setup leading into it, you have a lull from here until then, and then end of July, I think, has a few kind of really bullish setups. And so it's kind of just waiting until then.
Also, I saw people floating for SEC chair, the guy who's Robinhood's chief legal officer. And so that's a pretty big...
That would be good.
That'd be a nice little turntables right there. So,
Duncan, we know... I think we know where you stand on the ETF. If you don't, just go read his tweets.
Well, I don't even get to say anything.
Just turn down the volume a little bit. All right, go on. Give us your, and then we can go to Ceteris.
Yeah. So I think the delay was definitely like bullish. Just give the asset managers more time to, maybe, I don't even know if they're going to be doing education or just like organize some more flows, just give them more time to prepare for the launch. I think the big thing that everyone on Twitter has been kind of overlooking is they're talking about ETH as like how it looks bearish right now, just from like a fundamentals point of view, and it might be like really hard to sell. But in reality, like the asset A is very like reflexive. So as the price goes up, its fundamentals like get better with the price going up. We've talked about that a bunch in the past. But so that's one thing. Like it looks more attractive as its price is going up. And then the second thing is BlackRock. I was like shouting this on Twitter, but they are like 6 months into their most successful product launch ever. They're making already a revenue of 50 million a year off IBIT, and they still have pretty small market share of like total Bitcoin that they could capture in that vehicle. Like realistically, crypto ETFs, if price keeps going up, are going to be like $1 billion a year, definitely like multiple billions over a decade in terms of management fees and revenue. So I think they're going to
make like 20 billion a year though, or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's more brand, I'd say, than tangible revenue.
Oh, I think that this is a whole new asset class, right? Like the ETF asset class or like management fee game is like very competitive amongst these people, and it's really hard to differentiate. This is like a whole new pie that they could get a slice of. So to like make sure that their leaders there is massive. Not only that, like ETH also has like more monetization potential, right? Like BTC is like the flat fee of 60 bips or whatever, but you have, on ETH, like a flat fee plus, like you could take some off staking if that gets amended later. So that is, I think, one of the big things where they can like almost like BlackRock can like almost create Ethereum's narrative or VanEck, right? Like BlackRock has like their build fund, like their money market on chain, like, I think it has like 500 million in it right now. Like what happens if Larry Finks does what he did for Bitcoin and starts doing the rounds on Bloomberg being like, everything's going to be tokenized and tradable on Ethereum. Like that in itself, like creates interest in Ethereum. You get interest in these like RWA products, like more money on chain, and could like literally improve the fundamentals of Ethereum itself. And he's just like, selling his own product and like this RWA product. VanEck published a piece talking about Ethereum as like the open app store. Like the app store takes 30%. So like Ethereum's like, you deploy these apps and it's like a smaller take rate. Like any of these things, also stable coins, like VanEck, the head of VanEck's son is making a stable coin, Agora, where they're going to compete with Circle. Like I wouldn't be surprised if BlackRock made a stable coin. Like that's another, like stable coins in itself are like, right now it's like $150 billion market. I think that they could probably get up to like $1 trillion, maybe a few trillion, because it just makes so much sense for all these people who don't have dollars in other countries in the world. So like any of these angles they could really take and push alongside marketing for the ETF to like capture those fees and like new products they launch, like their stable coin or their RWA product. And I think it could completely flip the narrative for Ethereum. So people bearish as it is right now, I think are kind of missing like the reflexive nature of Ethereum. Like if they get that flywheel going, things could get crazy again. Also, like we basically retraced the entire announcement pump. Like we pumped 30% on the fact that the Ethereum ETF was going to be passed sooner than expected, and we're down like 27% from that.
I think that the market's really pricing in a dud of a launch at the moment.
That's it, yeah. Although like the ETH pairs are all up since then, right? As kind of Ceteris pointed out last week, like most of the ETH pairs are up, so ETH has outperformed since the ETF announcement. But I agree. Let's go maybe Ceteris last. I think you have a slightly bearish take.
Well, I just like don't. I have no idea what the demand for this will be. Like I don't even know how I'm supposed to.
I have no idea either. But
that.
I agree that it feels like it's the market's pricing in pretty crappy demand, right? Like I think most people are saying we didn't have enough time to market it, which is probably true. That people won't understand ETH, like Bitcoin's digital gold. It's easy to understand. I don't know. I also think there's this thing where like not that many people care about gold in the scheme of things. Like gold is 10 trillion, maybe 10 to 20% of that is like industrial uses. But not that many people care about gold or are into this like fiat debasement sort of narrative. I feel like.
Yeah, but that's not
compared to-
Bitcoin's only narrative now anyways. It's becoming a DA layer too. So it's like,
Yeah, but no one's
I
Bro,
mean,
no,
come
they're not
on.
selling that.
Pension funds are buying.
you guys
On-
got to
on
look
DA layer.
ahead. BlackRock is selling DA, Bitcoin DA. This is the most expensive DA you can buy.
I just think that
But
basically
the
like not that
debasement
many
narrative
people-
is
the
only going to
TAM
gain
isn't
momentum,
that-
though.
I agree, but I also think that narrative for like the narrative for ETH is in a way like bigger and also in a way easier to understand. I feel like the
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's the
App
thing is,
Store,
like
the
crypto Twitter's
stuff
pretty
and, like,
split.
the-
It's
the
funny.
platform, like tech platform thing.
Yeah,
Like, I
but
just
the
think
tech,
it's
but
very
okay,
easy to-
okay,
Mhm.
but here's the thing: digital gold is true, and it's like it's the one. It is Bitcoin is the one digital gold. You say tech platform, it's like, hey, there's a lot of different tokens you can buy to like express
Yeah,
a
but
play
they
on tech
don't know.
platforms.
They're gonna just be
Why?
selling
Why
it.
does everybody think that like all these institutional investors are like 50 IQ? I mean, I think they're gonna put some. You're gonna do some research into this. They're gonna look at like a declining revenue for like Ethereum over the last few years. They're going to see other ecosystems
Yeah,
going
they're going
up.
to look at TVL. They're going to
Well-
see
well,
that
part-
like, there's all these
I know.
layer twos that are built on top of Ethereum. They're choosing Ethereum. Most RWAs are issued on Ethereum.
Right, but
first.
right,
there's
but
also
the-
I think the weak fundamentals you can also say have the potential to reverse in a regime that's more
Yeah, really
conducive
quickly.
to startups building on
Sure.
Ethereum and crypto, right? And so that's something that will only get stronger leading into year end. Then you get the question is like, will crypto come up in the debate, right? Like they kind of go through topics gradually with the most pertinent ones first, and then they don't necessarily repeat everything at each debate.
I think
So there's a
ETH
chance
is-
it comes up.
yeah. And like
What
ETH
I
is way more institutional in my mind than like Solana. It's like do you love your mother and Iggy posting aspects and like meme coins drive most of the revenue there, most of the excitement.
Yeah, that's bad
I just
fun.
don't-
That's like kind of stupid.
But I don't think people are going to see that as like are going to be. And first of all, there's no ETF, right? There's no way for most institutions to buy it. ETH is really
Well, I'm
the
not
only way
saying
to
that
express
like
a tech bet on crypto.
I'm not
Where
saying
Bitcoin
that
is.
I'm not saying that bearish like Ethereum ETF flows are good for Sol. It's bad for everything. I don't, but like I don't think it's guaranteed that people are ready to like ape this narrative.
I think it's underpriced is all I'm saying. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
I
think
don't know how
it's-
to see how determine what the flows are going to be, but I think the market's pricing them super bearish, and
Yeah.
I think at this point it's more
Yeah.
likely to surprise to the
Agreed.
upside.
I think you're gonna have flows again from people converting, and then I think they will fall off a cliff once the conversions stop. And so there's gonna be a trade where you probably de-risk, whether it's 1 to 2 to 3 weeks after the ETF, once you start to see the slowdown where the easiest flows are behind us, and now it's really you convincing people that there's a lot of value here.
But yeah, I think the big thing right now that's happening in the market, and same kind of right after the Bitcoin ETF, is every market participant that's like done well and survived. Almost every big news event in crypto has been a sell the news, right? Like almost every single one. So it's like we're all conditioned into this like shorter term thinking where it's like, okay, like this event happens, and it's very rare that like the fundamental effect from it is actually going to keep up with like the hype that gets priced in, so the market gets very excited. And what's happened with these ETFs is that like it's been a complete shift in market structure, and like stuff for BlackRock, they're starting to put it as like a 1% allocation in a bunch of their funds. It's like if that becomes the global standard, a 1% allocation to Bitcoin, like there is still like so much inflows to come, like hundreds of billions inflows to come. And so, but that happened over a long period of time, right? So I think that like right now we had an insanely like heated run up to 74K. Shit went crazy. We've chopped along in this range from like 60 to 70, and then a lot of these like meme coins and low float high FTV coins have gotten wrecked, and now like crypto Twitter, at least like the people are like, okay, like we're cooked for now. But in reality, this is like a multi-year time frame, and everything's lining up really well for Bitcoin. And I think on the Ethereum side, there's so many angles and narratives that they could spin up that like improve the fundamentals, and B, like allow them to sell the product. And yeah, Solana might be better, Ceteris, for sure. I agree with that, but it's like it doesn't have an ETF right now, and there's still going to be like flows in
Yeah.
the
Once again, we're not arguing ETH versus SOL. We're arguing if the ETH ETF will get flows, and so
we can move to ETH versus. We're going to discuss market dynamics anyway.
I don't
feel
know.
like
We
that's
know.
a good pivot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing I'll say though, this idea that like institutions are going to choose Ethereum is like provably wrong at this point anyways. Like PayPal is literally incentivizing. There's like you deposit PayPal on Camino and you get paid PayPal stable coins, right? So like this idea that institutions will only deploy in like the Ethereum ecosystem is like a nice thing people tell themselves, but institutions are rational. They will just deploy where is most profitable for them.
No, I definitely think that
I mean,
Solana is going to gain market share.
Like most RWAs are on Ethereum though. Like right now, like you can.
Yes, right now we're forward looking though. like
yeah,
it's pretty easy to see
the
projection of where this is going to go. Like it's pretty obvious where this is all going to go to me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But I think that the high value stuff in the stable coins right now are being, mostly deployed on ETH, and that is definitely a moat for now. But the payments and the higher speed stuff, I definitely think Solana is taking share there. But I just think it would be so easy for BlackRock to like launch a stable coin or like put more attention on this RWA stuff and just like start this entire narrative up and actually like single-handedly like get the reflexive cycle going for Ethereum again and like improve its fundamentals for a time. And people are just like so bearish on that.
Well, listen, the lower the market goes, the more bullish you should become on the ETF, right? Like
definitely.
So yeah, I mean, the prediction markets. So they started pricing in Camela like day and a half ago. She was, I don't know, 3 cents or something, and now she started skyrocketing up, and then about half an hour ago, it said Biden is mulling whether or not he's going to run, which, I mean, that kind of seems like he's dropping out. And so I think prediction markets have definitely shown like their use in this. The other thing too, though, is like Bowden is just
what do you define as use though? It's not like they're influencing the election. They're just a very efficient way to speculate on him. But
yeah, but it's good to see what's actually cut through the bullshit noise.
Yeah, It's also there's 5 million of betting on Kamala. This isn't
well, there's 80 million
predicted
in the Democratic nominee 2024.
Right.
6 million, on Kamala.
Yeah,
but
I mean it's yeah.
But even so, like Cedrus maybe remember this better, but like markets, like I think they showed like even like a pretty small sample size of like markets are very good at like predicting, even if it's not a ton of liquidity, or at least cutting through the noise of what's happening. It's not necessarily predicting what's going to happen, but it's like digesting all the news that's coming out and then like putting an accurate representation on it. Which I think is super helpful with like all this media stuff, like, all these different media sources, you don't know who to believe. Like, this is a great kind of source of truth. Like, I love checking this stuff to be like, okay, like as long as the market's reasonably liquid, this is probably a pretty good proxy for actually what's going on, versus you could read, 100 different headlines. And if you're not like a subject matter expert, like you wouldn't really know which institution's telling the truth.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like a broader issue of today's media landscape in the US.
Yeah. Like I just like them to digest information and take a look at what's going on.
Yeah. Like, is anybody gonna buy Bowden? Like, this is the worst looking chart in probably the entire industry.
I round trip my Bowden.
Like, it's still 26. It's still 26 mil. It's like, what? So okay, so the bear case for them is pretty easy to understand. Like Bowden was funny. Bowden was funny, and then went to being sad, and like sad is not investable. And so
that is investable. That isn't investable.
But I still like what? Can anybody does anybody have like a case for why some of these political coins will retain any value after the election? Like, why are people
I-
still going to be holding Trump or MAGA or whatever?
I mean, it's the same argument that you can make for any meme coin, though. It's just a bet on attention, right? And so, if like, why is WIF gonna continue holding value or
I mean, it
or
has a hat.
PopCat, right? And PopCat's the number one cat.
I
and
hate
like,
this.
but it's all the same rationale, right? Like, I don't understand. Like you were saying, it's not like you can redeem the Trump for something like that. But that was never the thesis behind any of this
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
right?
I
It's just
guess. Yeah.
so I don't know how.
I
That's
guess
a
I guess the
reasonable
reason
argument.
is I guess the reason is because there is like a clear end date for political coins versus meme coins.
For some of them.
I mean,
but at the same time, you could say, as he becomes, if in the scenario where Trump wins and he's more constructive towards crypto, then there's more attention. Like, it all sounds a bit ridiculous, but you have to view this through the lens of meme coin investing, and that's what we're doing, right? And so, if the idea is he will, I agree, the losing candidates, those should trend towards zero because those guys have no future attention that they'll receive.
Well, the Bowden thing was that even if he fails, he'll do it. The diaper stays on, and so it should.
So
it
much.
should
Yeah,
pump-
but like no
it
one's
should
thinking
pump
about it
whether goes up
anymore.
or down. Where I feel like I was scammed on that.
Yeah, that was a scam. But I think
People dumped on me while assuring me that the diaper stayed on.
the Trump one is
The
like,
diaper does stay on.
I don't know Trump anymore, but I think it is like the whole DJT thing, like that probably helped de-risk him launching his own coin. So like that could like
I'd say
No.
I take the other side of that. I think that kind of ruined because they're we still don't really have full clarity on the degree of Barron's involvement, but it's clear that there was some, and so I think that kind of spoiled their opportunity to launch their own token.
Yeah.
Because
that's what I mean.
which is bullish for Trump.
Yeah, for Trump.
Got it. Yeah, I thought you were going the other side on that. Like that was bullish on them launching their own token because it shows that there was appetite on their side to do it. But
Yeah,
I think that just like kind of ruined the setup for them.
at least for now. Who knows? Trump.
Because I think part of the rationale on their end was it was going to be a potential fundraising mechanism as well.
Yeah, no, I could see him doing it. Like that thing
post-election.
crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that the political coins are strange.
I think they're as reasonable as most, like the most popular dog coin, the most popular cat coin, the most popular.
I'll agree with that, even though I think those are stupid too.
And so the one I think, I guess, potentially bearish argument for the Trump coins, but I think that'll eventually reverse too, or the polyfi coins is their difficulty with getting listed on sexes. And so like part of what helps on some of these meme coins is just the fact that you can ape them on leverage, and so you also have opportunities to squeeze the shit out of people who come in on late shorts. And so that really kind of, I think volatility is what's needed for some of these meme coins to do well, right? Because they're the best trade to go long and then the best trade to go short. And so that the fact that perps exist, I think is a huge benefit to some of these in terms of their ability to kind of rip.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like on the Pepe stuff, it was just seen as like really good ETH beta. So like on the ETH ETF, everyone longed it, just like looking for something higher beta, and then it's come back down just as fast. So like it's a good tool to trade.
Yeah, I think Pepe is pretty good setup right now. It's a long. I am long Pepe.
Oh, God.
Going into the ETH ETF.
Do we have theories for stocks are doing pretty well again today, and we're just selling off super hard. And we've also had a ton of big like political wins recently too. It seems like, I guess the SEC sued, but I don't know. Do people care when the SEC sues people now?
Yeah.
Like we've had the BNB secondary sales ruled not a security, which is pretty big. Even Gabe said that was big, and like when Gabe says that, then he thinks everything is not as big as people on Twitter make it out to be. So that was pretty bullish. There was like Chevron, which I don't know anything about.
I think it's flows that are really, Germany selling, US continuing to sell, I think once there's clarity on that front, that'll bring people in off the sidelines. And that's why I think the Bitcoin conference where Trump is speaking could be a really solid catalyst, because it potentially puts a lid on selling of like Gox coins and all the other stuff that they've taken.
Wait, they have Gox coins too? I thought it was just like the Silk Road and the seizures.
Silk Road, sorry, Silk Road.
Yeah,
not Gox. Yeah.
What's been interesting over the past couple weeks, or let's say 3 weeks, I've been watching the price action pretty closely, and it's like we had this sell off from like 71 at the start of June, all the way to 64, which was kind of unexplained because like equities are like ripping to new highs. Then we like sold off really sharply from 64 to like 58.5 based on the Mt. Gox news coming out. So like we had some people front running that. And then after the debate, like crypto rallied because it's like, okay, Trump looks like he's going to win. And then like the next day, like everything was up, like equities were up, like everything that is correlated with crypto was up, and crypto sold off. And then like later that day, the SEC sued Consensus. So it felt like those are two events of like insiders front running the news. Again, like equities are up more today, and then crypto just randomly puked like 4% over the weekend. So is there going to be another news event? I feel like we've absorbed a lot of bad news. You have like Silk Road, Mt. Gox coins, Germany selling, and then also those lawsuits. It's like now, I feel like it just comes down to flows. Like what other big surprise news is going to come out and smash crypto over the head, especially coming into the election where both candidates are kind of like more aware of crypto as like a potential issue for voters and don't want to piss anyone off. So at least out of the US, I don't see any big things. Maybe it's just like flows slow down because it's summer and like that whole marketing engine kind of turns off, which could be also like an intermediate bear case for ETH. But yeah, I feel like we've absorbed quite a bit of bad news, and we're still holding the range lows. Like we're just like we're not that high. We're like 15% off the highs.
Yeah, crypto Twitter vibes definitely make it seem like we're a lot lower. Although I think most people on crypto Twitter are overweight alts, which have just gotten destroyed.
Crushed.
And I don't
Except for Banana made a new all-time high yesterday. Woo!
Really? Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, except Banana. And I don't think it's gonna get too much better for a lot of these alts. I think the supply demand dynamics are pretty bad, as we've talked about for a long time on the Hivemind.
Yeah, I'm curious what some of these are trading OTC at now. Like you said, Duncan, like Bitcoin's off 15% off the high, but I mean, Celestia is like 75% off the high, and there's a lot of like OTC stuff.
Fatality.
And I mean, Tia is kind of like Tia is like a legit project, right? And it's something people actually want to like have a take on. And so it kind of is like, it's a legit project. Should Tia be valuable is a different question, but it is a like legit good project.
It's definitely a good project. I think you should think it's definitely valuable, and I think that's one of the like better alt setups. Well, actually, I don't want to say that. That's a bit too much. But I do think that it's not one of the worst ones for sure.
It's getting better. It's getting better.
Because you had just like a lot of secondaries. A lot of secondaries happened above the current market price while it was at $15 to $20. You had like reasonable. I think one of the higher ones, like outside of like Layer Zero, Ton, and Sol, which I don't really consider like in the same ballpark. It's one of the ones that had a higher secondary volume, and you also had that launch. It's up from where it launched, right? It's one of the only ones where you're up if you bought it on launch week. It launched at like $2.5, and there's a lot of volume that took place above the market price. Cost basis is reset. Now there still are like insiders that are up a ton. Like I think the seed was it 10 million, but it's like super legit project. Like there's a lot of stuff happening. A lot of people deploying rollups on top of Celestia and stuff.
Yeah. It's just like. I don't know if being a legit project is enough to mean your token needs to be valuable. Like
it's a legit project. It makes.
I think
what
it
is it?
Like
a couple million a year. Doesn't it like? Well, I think someone said it would only make like.
You're
a
talking
few
about the
million a
top
year.
cat in like this is the top cat coin. Like
Yeah.
how is that not like how is that not way less than being a legit project that's actually solving like an important problem in the space?
Well, it just goes back to the whole like fundamentals can be bearish thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just.
But luckily there
You
are
got to
no
listen to Russ
fundamentals.
Hanneman. Absolutely no revenue. Don't show revenue.
Yeah. I
No,
think the like this is all like pre unlocks, you know, all this stuff for
there's
like
a
all
lot
this
of
action on
like
a bunch of these coins is
weird
just like pre
distortion.
unlock action. So it's gonna be pretty crazy once I think unlocks hit on some of these and you have like billions of dollars of unrealized gains. I think there's a lot of stuff that's much closer to vaporware, I would say. With billions of dollars of unrealized gains, where you've got to assume the team knows it's vaporware. They're not mission driven. They haven't been here since like for years, like the TIA team has, building through 2 or 3 bear markets. There's a lot of teams where I think it's like I don't know. I think these charts are going to look really ugly.
Yeah, I agree with
that's
that. And
fair.
I think with Tia, it's like, listen, if the whole Tia thesis was only DA and that's like the whole thing it's ever going to be, I'm not interested in that token. I don't care how many rollups use it. But I think there's like a lot of future paths it can take, and that is like pretty easy to kind of get behind and convince yourself of. And so they are a legit team. They have like a lot of smart people. It's a good project. It makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
No, I don't know if it's worth $6 billion though.
It's just you got to compare them relatively, right? Some of this stuff.
No, that's cope.
It's not
cope.
cope.
Unless it's an app and wormhole, it's cope.
Unless it's my bags.
No, the relative value stuff is honestly such cope. Unless
relative value
different
stuff is cope unless you're doing pair trades.
Yeah.
But to think like one should reprice to the other is
that's
tough.
definitely,
If you think like they're going to converge, then yes, converging or one reaching the high price of the other one.
It's more so that these things are priced in ETH and Bitcoin terms, right? There's like pretty good, like Doug from Ambient had that really good post because everyone was saying like FTVs are really high when you launch, but actually when you price these things in terms of ETH, they're launching at pretty similar levels. Like the floats are pretty similar to past cycles, and also the valuations are pretty similar in ETH terms. So like relative value to that extent isn't cope. Like these things are priced in, and there's also I think someone else, I don't know if it was him, that showed that the same thing is actually true in traditional markets, where like the valuations correlate pretty well to like the S&P and the NASDAQ, like IPO.
No, there's definitely an element of that, but and I think Kobe had like a thread where he talked about that. But it's also just like some of these projects will clearly like I don't know Tia's whole roadmap, but at least just on the data availability roll-up stuff, like it's never going to be worth $5.5 billion. I don't think, based like maybe
they need to like come up with
saying.
you need to come up with other business lines, which they can definitely do. So that's like part of it's like legit project, good team, and they're going to get a lot of roll-ups deploying on them. And then once you have a lot of roll-ups on them, you can kind of like start to fit in other pieces, right? So
there's also like an interesting, I kind of talked to a few of you about this, an interesting, more sinister thing that's happened where like a lot of the circulating supplies for some of these coins are just like Fugazi. Like the CoinGecko circulating supply, like they include treasury or they include market maker tokens, and oftentimes, or not oftentimes, but sometimes they're overstated by like up to 10x. The project that will not be named is an example of this, where the float, the actual float is much lower than the reported float, which means that the first unlock is way heavier than it seems like it's going to be. And also, like if you're looking at the unrealized gains to market cap ratio, there's some projects when you actually look at the reality, it's like 15 to 20 times.
Yeah, I don't think the people who
over a 2-year vest, it's literally like every month and a half, the whole market cap worth of value is unlocking, and you need like that much buying pressure just to sustain. Like I don't know. I don't see bullish unlocks ahead.
Yeah. I think that our listeners probably know to stay away from these unless you've gone really deep on them. So that's good. But yeah, it's just kind of we've talked about it a bunch, but it's unfortunate. I just wonder what's the price action going to look like, like, because Jan, you and I have talked about this a bunch, but you're like the price is set on the margin, so it's like, you know, it could look like there's so much selling coming, and then like the first unlock happens, and then they're just down like 50%, and then it's like, okay, it's not that much, or they're down like 90%, and then the future's not that much, right?
Yeah, I think with like this whole talking about like circulating, fully diluted, all this stuff, a lot that also matters is like the propensity to sell with these tokens. And so obviously the ones that unlock and like higher unrealized gain, as Jose has talked about, higher propensity to sell. But there's also like just using them for grants and everything too. And like those 100% get sold all the time. And so that's why a lot of these L2s
That's WorldCoin, right?
they just
WorldCoin's been
have
emitting like $16 million a day worth.
And Arbitrum.
so essentially you just have all these protocols. They have like a monopoly on printing their own currency, and they just print a bunch, and that's what they use to like develop their project. And it's pretty heavy, and it's just like constantly coming on the market. Like it takes a lot of just real buying pressure on those to like, you're essentially funding all the grants if you're buying like the token on the open market.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all trades, not investments, or most of them. Like it's just, you look for good setups for oversold. You know, people are positioned well, and then there's some catalysts coming up, but over time there's still going to be a lot of net selling, and so it's hard to be long-term optimistic on them.
Yeah, I think projects just raise too much money. You know, there's too much, like there's too many tokens sold at low valuations, and like a layer one doesn't need to raise $200 million. Like realistically, it's a software project. The token itself is the incentive, because you kind of raise this money and dilute yourself, and then you're using your token for grants on top and diluting yourself further. It's just like, yeah,
but I think it makes a lot of sense though. You kind of sell enough to fund a long runway, and then because you raised at some val earlier, right? You raised a couple $100 million or whatever it might be. Because of that, there's a perception that your token should be more valuable, and so when you do these grants, you have a lot more ammo to use, and you can make them, kind of objective-based grants, and so you can claw back if certain criteria.
I just don't think
it gives you a lot of ammo though to kind of. I'm not saying the math necessarily checks out. I'm saying the logic is there to raise a bunch and then use it as grants at inflated vals.
But in a world where people are more aware of these dynamics, like the unrealized gains to market cap and stuff, then they won't command a premium, right? It'll be kind of the opposite. Like if you raised a bunch of money at a low valuation, you're like, well,
no, I don't think
I know those tokens are going to be sold eventually.
So. I think that impacts it, but it doesn't net out.
Sure.
No way. I still think like if it were trading at 1/10 the val, the grants wouldn't be more valuable because there's less future selling. Like that, I think sure people are going to apply a discount to a very inflated val, but it's not going to reduce it enough where it's actually worth less than something trading at a much lower val. People still anchor to high numbers.
You've paid a lot to like all those tokens are going to be sold at some point, and the more these people are up, the more likely they are to be sold. And you don't need that much money to get to the same place. Like I don't know. I don't think.
So are you just saying like just sell less tokens, and then like keep more in the treasury?
I'm saying raise less money, so sell less tokens to investors. Yeah, keep more in the treasury or distribute or whatever. Like these projects don't need to be raising this much money.
I don't know though. You can make the case that like if you raise so much money, then you can also just use like dollars for grants instead of your own token, and so then you have the double dip of like your valuation is probably higher, and then you're also not actually using your token as currency more. Because if you're just going to use your token as currency for most of the grants, then that's just like a consistent headwind that you're dealing with. Versus if you, there's no reason why projects need like 200 plus mil.
Yeah.
They're
I
never
think you
going to
point out flaws in raising a lot, but I don't think it's better overall for the project, nor do I think it provides them with more optionality versus raising less. So like,
I
yes,
think
you
you
can point
should
out
raise
flaws
less
with raising
before
more, but I
going
think
out
you
with
can.
your token.
Yeah, but at the same time, if there's appetite to raise for people to invest, I think it's rational to build up your US dollar based treasury and ensure that you have runway for a long time.
It's rational for the team, like, but I don't think it's necessarily rational for or good for the project long term. And I don't think overfunded projects do very well either. Like when you look historically, even the successful projects like Solana didn't raise that much. Like the biggest round it did, like how much did they raise in the coin list auction?
Yeah, but that was more a function of the size of the market at the time, rather
I mean,
than
have we
them.
had one of these mega raises actually have like their token, and have we seen it play
Aptos, I
out?
mean, there's a bunch of these other ones raised a lot of money. Aptos, Wormhole raised a lot of money. Layer Zero raised a lot of money.
I just
Layer
think
Zero
like,
those raised at really good values. To be fair, those have don't have the issue.
if you're a
with
project,
realized gains.
like everything comes with trade-offs, but I think you're better off raising more when it's available, because it's not always going to necessarily be there, and so you should take it when you can, and then just kind of then you have the optionality of deciding what you want to use to fund grants or expansion.
I just think you should have like 24 to 36 months runway for your for whatever it is you want to achieve, and not like 20 years, which is like realistically what. Otherwise, you end up like Polkadot spending money on animated CoinGecko logos. You literally
But that's
that's just like I think there's a lot of different issues.
Poor governance. Yeah, that's not necessarily that's not a product of raising.
Well, I don't
much.
know.
It's like,
everybody has
every startup that's
50K.
overfunded
Only
does
one
this,
project
like-
has animated.
I agree. I
your
agree.
runway expand. You should think about it in terms of what you need, and then raise that rather than how much can I raise, and then okay, let me expand my team, my resources according to how much I can raise, which is realistically what people are doing in crypto. It's very hard to spend $150 million productively, or like 9 figures in any case productively for a crypto project. Like even if you're a layer one, it's just.
But
it's just really
I think
difficult.
you're kind of like there's too many factors to like de facto say raise less money.
Exactly. I think raising more gives you optionality, and so it's ultimately up to the team to decide what they're going to do with it. I agree that
of course
there
that's the
are
team.
conditional elements where it's like naturally if you raise more, you're more likely to be kind of irresponsible with it. I agree, but I still think ultimately it boils down to the fact that it just gives you more optionality.
Like Ethereum raised 17 million in an ICO. Like when you look at all the most successful network, I was going to put Cosmos in there. I don't know if it's fair. I mean, it's still a $7 billion or whatever. It's one of the highest market cap.
I mean, it's only
ones.
like 2x above where it came public like 5 years ago.
They raised like Ethereum raised 17 million. I think Solana raised very little in their coin list auction. I don't remember how much. I think it might have been like $2 million. And then there was like $2 or $3 million raised before that. And like I see this consistently that the most successful teams in general are raising small amounts of money that get them to their next milestone and being really agile and like just efficient with their funding. And teams that raise a lot then have now you need an HR person because you need to expand your team way faster. You need a fancy office. You need to do.
I think that
Brad Gerstner and Bill Gurley had that a pod on basically just the effects of or like how they thought the venture landscape was going to evolve in after 2001, where it was more of the value be captured on the private side because you had what Google did where they raised very little and were able to accomplish a lot, and then ZERP and just VCs raising a bunch of money kind of forced these companies to just take on these massive checks. And so taking all that money, like you mentioned, created a lot of bloat. But I think it's a little bit different on the crypto side because you have this token and basically, the fact that you have the optionality of using cash or token on the incentive side. So like, I don't know. I still think for a lot of these projects, it makes sense for them to raise, perhaps not to the same degree, but I'm probably somewhere in the middle between where you stand and what currently played out. Where
it's also the type of people who are going to raise the type of people who are going to raise small rounds just to do what they need. They're probably like very pragmatic mission focus versus like the marketers are gonna like raise more
No,
money.
I think at some point it makes sense to like. I'm not saying you don't always need to raise like if you have big ambitions and you've got product market fit, it makes sense to throw fuel on the fire and raise a lot of money when you know how you want to deploy it. But you should start with what you need and then raise that rather than starting with what you can raise, which is what I think a lot of people are doing in crypto. And to me, it should be like a seed round, and then depending on how complex your project is, like a series A, and then there should be some kind of form of ICO that you can do where you can raise money directly from the public, or you go live and then do like a treasury sale once the token's live. If you raise too much, I just think it really screws with your incentives, and I haven't seen it really go that well. With sort of obviously exceptions for sure, and I think that's part of the problem why like these projects raise so much. It's just going to be tough to sort of pay that back, right? Because that's effectively what you're doing when these unlocks happen. You're like, and it's going to just be tough to pay all that back. Yeah.
I mean, we can move topics. I think we've done.
Yeah, I mean that was it for the topics I had. Does anyone want to talk about anything else? I had like Pendle randomly on the topics just because there's a bunch of people that were super bullish Pendle.
Well, yeah, Pendle's a weird one because I guess it did well.
A bunch of people on Twitter.
It did well due to something that wasn't actually their like business model. And so now that that's going away, which is essentially they were kind of like an ICO type platform. Yeah. Now I guess it's like unclear. They got most of their hype was pivoting, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like they took advantage. Most teams just like keep going to just like
good product.
Yeah.
For sure. I just think that it's like most of their TVL and traction comes from being an ICO platform, right? Where people are buying YT and like effectively participating in an ICO, and the other side is taking the fixed yield. And I don't know how sustainable that meta is.
Well, it'll probably just like it's a function of market like heat, right? Like people launch and raise money and do these points things when the market's hot, and then when it's not, they don't. So it's like I feel like it'll probably gyrate like a launch pad type of business where it's like market's hot, the revenue's high.
But it's just like it's a very crappy way of like achieving that job to be done, right? Like the people buying YT, and I'm one of them, are just trying to get exposure to these early stage or like relatively early stage projects. But like you don't know how much you're buying, you don't know how much they're going to issue. Like you don't know, like it's really
for
hard.
Sure. But it's more like a regulatory arbitrage, right?
Yeah, like, but it's unclear whether it actually stands. And also, I think like there's Kobe's thing that's doing ICOs. There's like we're incubating a project that's doing that too. I think if ICOs come back, that's just a much cleaner way to participation in early stage projects, right? That's my main issue with it. It's like it's a very hacky. This is a very hacky way of getting this.
It was more of a way to kind of allow for people to participate in the initial like TVL bootstrapping these projects while simultaneously de-risking by giving up the upside and taking a fixed return. So I think it was like a combination of things, right? Like the fact that it was combining two elements.
Yes.
The buyers of
that's fair,
wanting exposure, and the sellers of people wanting to de-risk for providing capital to the Athenas of the world.
But don't you think there should be two separate sort of markets? You know, you would just like pay your capital providers for capital, and then the people that want to buy your token should just buy your token rather than
in a perfect
I think it's
world.
both. But I think it'd be both. I think you can have those who want to purely buy into the token, but I think the market is probably a bit larger for you combining the two, because there's also the speculative element of which encourages additional participation. Like not speculative element on the upside of the token, but also how much you're going to get. And so it can be like both a feature and a bug.
I think it's more of a bug, but it's definitely just a regulatory thing, right? It's like so many of these projects are just regulatory. Or it's like if there was a way to like compliantly sell the token like an ICO, they would probably rather do that.
Well, it's also depending on the scale that you want to do it, right? Like if you want to participate in like really early stage stuff, there's not going to be the capacity to do it in massive size. But for these huge farms, right? Like again, just going back to Athena as the example, where there's 9 figures of exposure possible. I don't think you're really going to be able to achieve that through a seed stage ICO platform.
Yeah.
You can't get 9 figures of exposure on the YTs either, though. Not
All right,
without not without meaningfully moving the.
Not
even
individually.
H-Figs
I
is
think
tough.
like in aggregate.
But I think the business will come back, assuming points and the YTPT stuff comes
Yeah, I
back
definitely don't think
with the
points are
market.
dead by any means.
No, I think
it's just
points
a
are here
function of the
to
market.
stay.
Function of the market.
I saw Kane had a thread today for, I forget what his project, Infinex or something like
Infinex.
that. He's doing this like you farming access to be in the ICO. So it's not like an ICO open to everyone. I think you need to do some like work, but then you are able to participate in the ICO after, which is like kind of, he says right in the thread, like it's probably still not legal, but like it's a good way. Like the incentives kind of make sense. It's an interesting idea.
We're like scheming on something similar. I think that's an interesting idea, like using points to basically, like, rather than give you an airdrop, give you like discounts on a future ICO is kind of an interesting idea. Like you qualify for the ability to purchase the token or whatever, but you'll still probably end up with a secondary market, right? For people that like the YT equivalent, for people that farmed it but don't actually want to do the ICO. So I don't know. I think these things always get like markets find a way to. Anyway, I think that was good in the end. I was losing hope there in the middle when we were discussing cat coins and political.
See,
memes.
Jose, we're aligned on the memes.
Yeah, no,
You guys
the
don't
only
like
difference is
making
I
money?
trade them. The only difference is I trade them. I don't like them, but I trade them.
There's only one play you need for memes. It's called Banana Again. Give you exposure to everything. Beautiful, beautiful coin.
With like a 0.2 beta. And I say this I have a big bag of bananas.
It's at all-time highs. All your memes are down 75%. What do you mean a 0.2 beta?
I mean, also just like farming stable coins, you're always at all-time highs too, right? So
It's up. It's up like 3x. What was it at?
yeah, it's done
I'm
well.
still up more than
year-
3x on my memes.
This year it's up 5 times, while paying a yield the whole time. 20 to 40% yield.
Yeah, but Duncan,
Wow.
these memes, like, and listen, I didn't catch any of these, but some of these go like 100x before they go.
I know, but
like,
you don't catch
50%
those.
drawdown. You're still
Well, yeah,
Oh
I
my
don't
God.
like. I don't do the. I
We've
don't
talked
really do
about
the
this
memes.
before. We've talked about this before.
Every meme I
Obviously,
bought has been
if
like
you
bad.
pick the best
You can do
performing meme, if you pick the best performing meme, then it's going to outperform this coin. But it's more about certainty and sizing and all these other factors.
Yeah, some deserve to take a little risk. Duncan, this guy's buying index tokens.
Duncan's such a contradiction. He's like a 21-year-old who's bullish gold and cash flow.
I just turned 23 today.
Oh, no
Listen.
shit. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy
man.
birthday, sir.
One thing I'll say about Duncan,
I feel old now.
I don't agree with
23 is
all of
tough.
I don't agree with all of Duncan's takes, but I do respect that Duncan actually tries to develop like fundamental thesis for everything that he's interested in. And so he doesn't just like do narrative or like trend following type stuff.
So we each say something nice about Duncan for his birthday. This is what we're doing now. Like a little bit.
I was gonna say it anyways, but now I'll
that.
use that as my birthday.
Yeah, it's your turn.
I got a list.
Let me pull up my list. All right.
Oh,
We
so
good?
I don't get those? Okay.
Oh, yeah,
You got
go
the
on,
one
go on.
compliment. That's good.
I love your rug in the background, and your office looks very regal.
Thanks, guys.
And
It's a little
you're very good
lopsided.
altcoin treasure trove. What do you call you? Treasure hunter. And I appreciate your banana pick. Probably my only alt that's not down 50%. So that's nice.
Yeah, I'm enjoying being a banana holder.
Same here.
Yeah, I'm not enjoying being a Synapse holder as much.
Guys,
but
don't worry. The chain's coming soon.
the chain's been coming since 2022. I feel.
Yeah, that
First
must
thing,
mean
that's fine.
it's really soon.
Surely it's sooner now than it was then. It's like
Okay,
sharding.
oh.
It's like the ETH sharding fucking roadmap.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
All right, boys, let's wrap up. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you. Is it next week? No, in 2 weeks for the next episode. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye. Nothing said on the Hivemind is a recommendation to buy or sell securities or tokens. This podcast is strictly for informational purposes only, and any views expressed by anyone on the show are solely our own opinions, not financial advice.